Story 1 of 20. AFL player Lance Collard faces disciplinary action for alleged homophobic slur. AFL player Lance Collard faces disciplinary action for alleged homophobic slur. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Lance Collard faced an AFL disciplinary tribunal hearing on April 9, 2026, for allegedly using a homophobic slur, F*******************, against Frankston player Darby Hipwell during a VFL match on March 27, 2026. Collard denied the allegation and claimed he said "come here, maggot" instead, signing a statutory declaration to that effect. The tribunal found Collard guilty of conduct unbecoming AFL Rule 2.3a on April 10, 2026, after deliberations extended into Friday. Collard was handed a 9-week suspension, with 2 weeks suspended, for the slur, starting after his existing 2-match ban for a high hit in the same match. Collard was previously banned for 6 matches in 2024 for using the same homophobic slur. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian and ABC report Collard was given a 9-week ban with 2 weeks suspended, but The Guardian, Article 4, initially reported a 7-week ban with 2 weeks suspended, later corrected to 9 weeks in other articles. The ABC and Guardian describe Collard's suspension as starting after his 2-match ban for the high hit, but Newscomau, Article 9, states the suspended weeks run until the end of 2027, which could imply a different interpretation of timing. The Guardian, Article 5, suggests the AFL may work backwards from a verdict in disputed cases, while ABC and Newscomau do not explicitly state this as a systemic issue. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, and news.com.au. Story 2 of 20. Queensland fuel theft cases involving large-scale diesel fraud and rural thefts. Queensland fuel theft cases involving large-scale diesel fraud and rural thefts. Here's what every outlet agrees on. A 48-year-old man was charged with stealing over $1.1 million worth of diesel fuel from unmanned depots in Parkinson, Bundamba, and Karawata between December 2024 and December 2025 using stolen fuel cards. Police raided a Greenbank property on March 24, 2026, where they found evidence of fuel theft, stolen property, and a homemade taser. The 48-year-old man was charged with 2 counts of receiving tainted property, 1 count of fraud over $100,000, and unlawful possession of weapons, category DHR. The man was remanded in custody and is due to reappear in Richlands Magistrates Court on May 15, 2026. Queensland Police warned that fuel theft, regardless of scale, is a criminal offence and will be prosecuted. But not all outlets told the same story. Article 1 states the man first appeared in court on March 15, 2026, while Article 3 states he appeared on March 25, 2026. Article 1 mentions the man was charged with enter premises and commit indictable offence, but Article 3 does not list this charge. This story was covered by ABC News and news.com.au. Story 3 of 20. Trump attacks Pope Leo XIV over Iran war, posts AI Jesus image, sparks backlash. Trump attacks Pope Leo XIV over Iran war, posts AI Jesus image, sparks backlash. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Donald Trump called Pope Leo XIV weak on crime and terrible for foreign policy in a Truth Social post on April 13, 2026. Trump posted an AI-generated image of himself as a Jesus-like figure healing a patient on April 13, 2026, which he later deleted. Pope Leo XIV responded to Trump's attacks by stating he was not afraid of the Trump administration and would continue preaching the gospel. Pope Leo XIV is the first American-born pope in Catholic history, elected in May 2025. Trump claimed the AI image was meant to depict him as a doctor related to the Red Cross, despite no clear medical symbols in the image. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian and SBS state Trump's AI Jesus image included a demonic figure with horns, while Trump claimed it was me as a doctor with no such figure. The ABC and Guardian report Trump's post about the Pope was on April 13, 2026, while Thej and SMH mention the AI Jesus image was posted on April 13 but deleted on April 14, 2026. The Guardian and Thej describe Trump's AI Jesus image as including a glowing orb or divine light, while Trump claimed it was meant to depict a medical scenario. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, news.com.au, SBS News, Sydney Morning Herald and The Age. Story 4 of 20. Eric Swalwell resigns from Congress and California governor race amid sexual misconduct allegations. Eric Swalwell resigns from Congress and California governor race amid sexual misconduct allegations. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Eric Swalwell suspended his California governor campaign on April 13, 2026, amid sexual assault and misconduct allegations. Swalwell resigned from Congress on April 14, 2026, following the allegations. A former staffer accused Swalwell of sexually assaulting her twice while intoxicated in 2024, as reported by the San Francisco Chronicle and CNN. 3 other women accused Swalwell of sending unsolicited explicit messages or photos, according to CNN. Swalwell denied all allegations, calling them false and fabricated in multiple statements. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian reports Swalwell's resignation took effect at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on April 14, 2026, while ABC does not specify the exact time of his resignation but confirms it occurred on April 14. The Guardian states Swalwell's lawyer threatened to sue one of his accusers, but ABC does not mention this detail. The Guardian reports that Swalwell's lawyer called the allegations a calculated and transparent political hit job, while ABC does not include this specific quote. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Story 5 of 20. Angus Taylor unveils coalition's hardline immigration policy targeting migrants' values and social media. Angus Taylor unveils coalition's hardline immigration policy targeting migrants' values and social media. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Angus Taylor announced a coalition immigration plan on April 13, 2026, at the Menzies Research Centre, including mandatory social media vetting for visa applicants and a safe country list for asylum seekers. Taylor singled out approximately 1,300 Palestinians from Gaza who arrived in Australia after the October 7, 2023 Hamas attacks, calling them a clear risk and demanding their visas be reassessed with far greater scrutiny. The policy proposes making compliance with the Australian Values Statement a binding visa condition, with breaches leading to deportation, and restoring temporary protection visas abolished by Labor in 2023. Taylor claims migrants from liberal democracies are more likely to subscribe to Australian values compared to those from places ruled by fundamentalists, extremists, and dictators. The plan includes creating an enhanced screening coordination centre within Home Affairs, integrating ASIO, AFP, and Border Force to screen social media and deport non-citizens who breach visa conditions. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian and ABC report that Taylor singled out 1,300 Gazans as a clear risk, but The Guardian also mentions over 2,000 Palestinians issued visas needing reassessment, while other sources only cite 1,300. News Kamau and ABC state that the coalition's policy would not involve new agencies, new powers, or new laws, but The Guardian and SMH imply the policy would require significant legislative changes to enforce the Australian Values Statement as a binding visa condition. Taylor claims in multiple sources that migrants from liberal democracies are more likely to subscribe to Australian values, but Labor and advocacy groups argue this is a discriminatory and unfounded assumption. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, news.com.au, Sydney Morning Herald and The Age. Story 6 of 20. WA Supreme Court rules on Gina Rinehart's mining royalty feud with Wright family. WA Supreme Court rules on Gina Rinehart's mining royalty feud with Wright family. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Justice Jennifer Smith delivered the ruling on April 15, 2026, in the Western Australian Supreme Court regarding the Hope Downs iron ore project royalties and assets. Right Prospecting, WPPL, led by Angela Bennett and descendants of Peter Wright, was awarded half, 1.25%, of the 2.5% royalties from Hope Downs backdated to 2007, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Hancock Prospecting, HPPL, owned by Gina Reinhardt, retains exclusive ownership of the Hope Downs and East Angela's tenements, rejecting claims by Right Prospecting and her children John Hancock and Bianca Reinhardt. The Hope Downs project is a joint venture between Hancock Prospecting and Rio Tinto, producing 50 million tons of iron ore annually, generating hundreds of millions in royalties. The dispute stems from a 1978-1980 agreement between Peter Wright and Lang Hancock, Gina Reinhardt's father, to divide mining assets, with later amendments. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian and ABC State Justice Smith found Lang Hancock's actions were fraudulent, while Hancock Prospecting's statement denies any wrongdoing by Gina Reinhardt regarding the trust. Right Prospecting claims the royalties owed could be up to $900 million, but Hancock Prospecting estimates the liability at $14 million annually since mining began in 2007. The Guardian and ABC report John Hancock's claims of fraud against Gina Reinhardt were dismissed as irrelevant, but Hancock Prospecting's statement calls them abusive claims of serious wrongdoing that were not accepted by the court. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, news.com.au, Sydney Morning Herald and The Age. Story 10 of 20. High Court strikes down Victorian campaign funding laws, exposing election to unlimited donations. High Court strikes down Victorian campaign funding laws, exposing election to unlimited donations. Here's what every outlet agrees on. The High Court ruled unanimously on April 15, 2026, that Victoria's campaign funding laws, introduced in 2018, are unconstitutional due to an exemption for nominated entities that favoured major parties. The ruling removes a $4,970 cap on individual campaign donations, ceases public campaign funding for candidates, and eliminates disclosure requirements for donations above $1,240. The case was brought by independent candidates Paul Hopper, West Party, and Melissa Lowe, Climate 200-backed, who contested the 2022 Victorian election and plan to run again in November 2026. The only parties with nominated entities registered under the Victorian Electoral Act are the Liberal Party, Labour, and the National Party, which received millions in exempt donations, e.g., Labour's $5.38 million from Labour Services and Holding, Liberals' $7.07 million from Cormack Foundation. The High Court's decision invalidated nearly 80 pages of Victoria's Electoral Act, Part 12, including foreign donation bans and real-time disclosure rules, due to the package deal nature of the laws. But not all outlets told the same story. The Age and ABC state the High Court ruling was handed down on April 15, 2026, but the exact time varies slightly. Thege, 2026, Forge 15T06:25:43, ABC. 2026 Forge 15T04:20:46, though the date is consistent. The Guardian does not mention the specific time of the ruling, only that it was handed down on Wednesday, while Thege and ABC provide precise timestamps. The Age and ABC both mention the November 28, 2026, election date, but Thege refers to it as November without the exact date in one headline, while ABC and Guardian confirm November 28. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, and The Age. Story 11 of 20. Moana Pasifika Super Rugby team to be disbanded at end of 2026 season. Moana Pasifika Super Rugby team to be disbanded at end of 2026 season. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Moana Pasifika will fold at the end of the 2026 Super Rugby season due to financial, operational, and strategic realities. The team is owned by the Pasifika Medical Association, PMA. Moana Pasifika Chair Dr. Kiki Maroate stated the closure was one of the hardest decisions we have ever made and emphasized finishing the season strong. The team was founded in 2020, though it joined Super Rugby Pacific in 2022 alongside Fiji and Drua. Moana Pasifika is based in Auckland and focuses on players of Samoan, Tongan, and Cook Islands descent. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian states annual running costs are more than $10 million, while ABC reports the estimated annual operating costs are $7 million. The Guardian does not mention the team's 1-7 record or its finishing position, while ABC explicitly states it is last in the competition. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Story 12 of 20. NASA's Artemis II crew returns to Earth after historic lunar mission. NASA's Artemis II crew returns to Earth after historic lunar mission. Here's what every outlet agrees on. The Orion capsule splashed down in the Pacific Ocean off the Southern California coast after nearly 10 days in space. The Artemis II crew consists of Christina Koch, Captain Victor Glover, Colonel Jeremy Hansen, and Captain Reed Wiseman. The crew reached a peak distance of 406,771 kilometers from Earth, breaking the Apollo 13 record of roughly 399,117 kilometers set in 1970. The Artemis II mission launched on April 1, 2026, from Cape Canaveral, Florida, aboard NASA's Space Launch System rocket. The Orion capsule was nicknamed Integrity by NASA. But not all outlets told the same story. Article 2, SBS, does not provide a publication date, while Article 1, ABC, specifies the splashdown occurred on April 15, 2026, but does not confirm if SBS aligns with this date. This story was covered by ABC News and SBS News. Story 13 of 20. Kanye West's Marseille concert postponed amid France's potential ban over antisemitic remarks. Kanye West's Marseille concert postponed amid France's potential ban over antisemitic remarks. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Kanye West postponed his June 11, 2026 concert at Marseille's Velodrome Stadium, Orange Velodrome, until further notice. French Interior Minister Laurent Nunez was seeking to block West from performing in Marseille due to his anti-Semitic remarks and Nazi sympathies. Marseille Mayor Benoît Payan stated in March 2026 that Kanye West was not welcome in the city, calling him a promoter of hatred and unapologetic Nazism. West released a song titled Heil Hitler in May 2025, which was banned by major streaming platforms. West previously advertised a swastika t-shirt for sale on his website. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian states West's Wireless Festival cancellation was due to UK government intervention, while the ABC does not explicitly attribute the cancellation to the UK government but confirms the ban led to the cancellation. The Guardian mentions Nunez discussed the ban with the regional prefect and mayor of Marseille last week, April 2026, but the ABC does not specify the timing of these discussions. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Story 14 of 20. Australia's fuel and fertiliser supply crisis and Albanese's diplomatic efforts in Southeast Asia. Australia's fuel and fertiliser supply crisis and Albanese's diplomatic efforts in Southeast Asia. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Anthony Albanese is visiting Brunei and Malaysia to secure fuel and fertiliser supply guarantees amid global oil crisis and Strait of Hormuz disruptions. Australia imports 90% of its fuel needs, with 9% of diesel imports and 11% of urea imports coming from Brunei. Brunei supplies 10% of Australia's urea imports, and Malaysia accounts for 10% of Australia's urea imports. Albanese met Sultan Haji Hassanal Bolkiah of Brunei on April 15, 2026, and secured guarantees that Brunei will not impose export restrictions on Australia's fuel and fertiliser supplies. Australia is Brunei's biggest trading partner, with bilateral trade worth almost $3 billion in 2024. But not all outlets told the same story. Article 1 states Brunei supplies 11% of Australia's urea imports, while Article 3 states Brunei supplies 10% of Australia's urea imports. Article 1 mentions Malaysia accounts for 10% of Australia's urea imports, but Article 3 does not specify Malaysia's urea share. Article 2 implies Albanese seeks unspecified increases in fuel imports from Brunei, while Article 3 states Brunei offered additional supplies without specifying quantities. This story was covered by ABC News and news.com.au. Story 15 of 20. Queensland proposes e-bike e-scooter licensing laws, sparking industry backlash. Queensland proposes e-bike e-scooter licensing laws, sparking industry backlash. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Queensland's proposed laws require e-bike and e-scooter riders to hold at least a learner license and be 16 or over. Uber Eats reported 89% of its Queensland delivery riders use an international passport and lack a driver's license. The proposed speed limit for e-bikes and e-scooters on footpaths is 10 km per hour. Transport Minister Brent Mickelberg defended the legislation, citing pedestrian safety concerns on footpaths. DoorDash warned the license requirement would create a disproportionate and unnecessary barrier for delivery riders. But not all outlets told the same story. The ABC states the proposed speed limit for e-bikes on footpaths is 10 km per hour, while it notes the current limit for personal mobility devices is 12 km per hour, but The Guardian does not mention the current 12 km per hour limit. The ABC reports a single fatality involving a legal e-bike in 2025, while The Guardian states e-bikes and e-scooters had the least fatalities of any transport mode but does not specify the exact number of e-bike-related deaths. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Story 16 of 20. Latitude Finance Australia fined $4 million for repeated spam law violations. Latitude Finance Australia fined $4 million for repeated spam law violations. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Latitude Finance Australia was fined $3.96 million by the Australian Communications and Media Authority, ACMA, for spam breaches. Latitude sent 2.3 million marketing messages without accurate contact information between March 2024 and April 2025. Of the 2.3 million messages, 344,416 lacked a functioning unsubscribe option. Latitude was previously fined $1.5 million in 2022 for similar spam breaches. ACMA member Samantha York stated the spam laws have been in place for over 20 years, calling Latitude's repeated non-compliance disappointing. But not all outlets told the same story. The ABC article mentions Latitude was fined $1.5 million in 2022, while Newskamau states the 2022 fine was $1.55 million. This story was covered by ABC News and news.com.au. Story 17 of 20. Parisian man wins €1 million Picasso painting in €100 charity raffle for Alzheimer's research. Parisian man wins €1 million Picasso painting in €100 charity raffle for Alzheimer's research. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Ari Hodara, a 58-year-old Parisian software engineer, won Pablo Picasso's Tête de Femme 1941, gouache-on-paper portrait worth €1 million with a €100 raffle ticket. The raffle was held at Christie's auction house in Paris on the 15th of April, 2026 at 6 p.m. local time, with the draw conducted online. All 120,000 raffle tickets were sold, generating €12 million in proceeds, €1 million to Opera Gallery, €11 million to Fondation Research Alzheimer. The raffle is the third edition of One Picasso for €100, launched in 2013, with prior winners including Jeffrey Ganano, 2013, and Claudia Borgono, 2020. The 2013 raffle raised €4.8 million for UNESCO site preservation in Tyre, Lebanon. The 2020 raffle funded sanitation projects in Cameroon, Madagascar, and Morocco. But not all outlets told the same story. ABC states Hodara is a software engineer, while Guardian describes him as a sales engineer. No other source confirms either title. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Story 18 of 20. Media mogul Anthony Catalano faces assault charges after alleged attack on wife in Melbourne. Media mogul Anthony Catalano faces assault charges after alleged attack on wife in Melbourne. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Anthony Catalano, 59, was charged with assault, false imprisonment, and making threats to kill on March 13, 2026, after an alleged attack on his wife Stephanie in their Street Kilda apartment. Catalano was allegedly in a severely drug-affected state during the incident, which lasted approximately 1 hour, and neighbors called police after hearing screaming. Police allege Catalano dragged his wife by her hair and ankles, held a clothes iron to her head, and threatened to stab her if she screamed again. "If you scream one more time, I'll stab you to death." Ms. Catalano fled the apartment, flagged down a passing car, and was driven away in extreme distress. She suffered a fractured coccyx, tailbone, from the attack. Catalano was arrested later the same day in Hampton, Victoria, wearing underwear allegedly torn during the struggle, and appeared in court via video link on March 13. But not all outlets told the same story. ABC states Catalano was wearing only his underwear during the attack, while Newscomau does not explicitly mention this detail. Newscomau references Catalano's statement to the Herald Sun but does not provide the full text, while ABC does not mention this specific outlet. ABC notes Catalano's defense raised tribal issues about the victim's alleged active participation, but Newscomau does not explicitly mention this defense strategy. This story was covered by ABC News and news.com.au. Story 19 of 20. Australian lesbian group wins appeal to exclude trans women from events. Australian lesbian group wins appeal to exclude trans women from events. Here's what every outlet agrees on. The Lesbian Action Group, LAG, sought a 5-year exemption under the Sex Discrimination Act to exclude transgender women from its public events, arguing for events exclusively for lesbians assigned female at birth. Justice Mark Moshinsky of the Federal Court ruled on April 15, 2026, to set aside the Administrative Review Tribunal's decision, sending the case back for reconsideration. The tribunal was found to have erred in its construction and application of the Sex Discrimination Act, particularly in its narrow view of exemption powers and failure to consider the indivisibility and universality of human rights. LAG spokesperson Nicole Mowbray called the court's decision a definite win and stated the group respects transgender people's rights but seeks its own space. Equality Australia's legal director, Heather Corkhill, stated the court did not endorse discrimination against trans women and only identified legal errors in the tribunal's reasoning. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian and ABC described the court's decision as a technical win or not a ruling on the lawfulness of excluding trans women, while Newscomau frames it as a win for LAG without emphasizing the technicality. Newscomau and Guardian mention the tribunal's decision was thrown out in January 2026, but ABC does not specify the January date for the tribunal's ruling. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, and news.com.au. Story 20 of 20. Air New Zealand launches Skynest bunk beds for economy passengers on ultra-long-haul flights. Air New Zealand launches Skynest bunk beds for economy passengers on ultra-long-haul flights. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Air New Zealand will launch Skynest bunk beds for economy and premium economy passengers on its Auckland-New York route starting November 2026. Skynest bunk beds will be available for booking from May 18, 2026, for 4-hour sessions priced between $500 to $600 New Zealand dollars, approximately $295, £217. Each Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner will feature 6 full-length, lie-flat Skynest pods in the aisle, with 2 booking sessions per flight initially. Passengers using Skynest must be over 15 years old, and only 1 session can be booked per passenger. Skynest pods include fresh bedding, privacy curtains, ambient lighting, eye masks, skincare, earplugs, socks, and charging ports. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian states the Auckland-New York flight duration is 17 hours, while SMH states it is 16 hours, 17 hours on the return. The Guardian mentions Skynest pricing as $500 to $600 New Zealand dollars, while SMH specifies a starting price of $495, likely NZD. The Guardian notes Air New Zealand slashed 4% of flights in April 2026, affecting 1% of passengers, but SMH does not mention this specific cut. This story was covered by The Guardian and Sydney Morning Herald.